See, that part doesn't like water, so you still have water all around here, right? There's water all the way around here. So these guys have to do something now, right? Yeah, they're going to do what penguins typically do. The emperor penguins, right, in Antarctica, what do? When it's real cold, they hover, they get close together. Hey, the ones in the middle are what? Fine, they're warm. Okay? That's what they're going to do. Look, he's going to actually go to him, yeah? But see, he's like inverted, right? It's okay. These fine too. He's always going to be fine, right? Because there's water here. And this guy, he's going to go with him too, right? These tails are going to actually just what? Hide. And they're going to do it in a way such that what? It creates this what? Spherical structure. You see that? Now you have water where? You have water here. H2O is water. And you have water inside this spherical structure. Yeah? You have water where? Outside the spherical structure. And where? Inside the spherical structure. We have our phosphate heads. Do they have a problem? No problem. Why? Because they're facing toward the what? Water. But our what? What is our fatty acid tails doing? Are they facing the water? No, they're hiding right there, okay? So this particular spherical structure is called what? That's the actual plasma membrane, okay? That's the, and what do we call it? It's not, is it one layer of phospholipids? If it was one layer of phospholipids, who would still have a problem? They'll be still exposed to the water inside the cell, right? So you're going to have this other inverted layer, right? That hides the fatty acid tails. And so that's what creates our actual what? Plasma membrane. We have to call it what it is. We have to call it a phospholipid what? Bilayer. Two layers of phospholipids. And now we see from the construction of it what is pretty much making up what we call the plasma membrane. What's making up the plasma membrane? What's about you? Who are you? You're based on what's inside you. Okay. All right. Not the superficial aspect. That's not who you are. It's about what's inside you. Okay. What's inside our actual plasma membrane? Fat. The fatty acids. Okay. The fatty acids are in there. Okay. The fatty acids are actually what's inside our actual. Okay. So basically, that's what makes up the membrane. Fat. What makes up the membrane is what fat? Really oil. Is that right? Because this actual group of carbons actually has, some of them have like double bonds between them. Yeah? All right, see this arrangement of carbons with no double bonds creates what we call a trans arrangement. Anybody? Trans, remember? And if that's the case, how are they going to stack on each other? That fatty acid with that fatty, they're going to stack real well. Like pancakes, nice and thick. And so that's a problem, right? That's why you shouldn't eat what kind of fat? Trans. They're going to stack on top of each other in your vessels, and then you're going to have a blockage in your vessel, okay? And if that's at the heart, that's going to cause a what? Heart attack. And if that's for the vessels going to the brain, that's going to cause a what? Stroke. All right? Avoid the But these, typically the fatty acids for your actual what? Phospholipids, those fatty acid tails are cis arrangements. They don't stack well. And when you have that, for that lipid, we don't call it a fat. We call it a what? Oil. See, oils, they not put together, stacked together. That's why it's a liquid form. That's kind of how the plasma, it's like liquid-like, right? So you think that's good for something to actually keep a cell stable? For the barrier to be like oil? No. So that's why you add a little bit of what? The chef adds a little what? Cholesterol. And some cholesterol in there, just like in Simon 1A, I wanted you to draw it out. You see some cholesterol in there with the fatty acids. That makes it a bit sturdier. So is all cholesterol bad? No, it's just that what do? We eat what? Too much of it. Okay? You always have to keep replenishing cholesterol in your plasma membrane for all your cells in your body. All right, so but that keeps it nice and stable. We don't want too much. Do we want our membrane to be too stable? No, because what we're going to talk about next is related to this particular biological molecule here which I want you to tell me what polarity we're talking about. If I just take these two carbons, we're going to make it simple. Two carbons. On one end, I have this. Have we seen that one before? Yeah. That's a functional group, right? We add this functional group we haven't talked about yet, though. But we do know from this one, what do we have there? Don't we have that? He's a bully too. He's a bully too. When he's actually making his agreement with the hydrogen so that they can share, is he equally sharing? No. So that means he's kind of pulling the actual electron from hydrogen more, creating a what? Partially negative charge. These hydrogens have then a what? So this actual group here, right? What do we say his particular what? Property was? What is he? Polar. His property, his significance in assignment 1A, the significance is that he's what? Polar. Polar, that means he's also hydro what? Philic. Very good. And so, what does this make him now? What is his significance? What's his property? His property is also what? Yeah. See? He's got different things going on in the different poles that he has. Right? Polar, which means he's hydro what? Yeah, so this entire molecule, with those functional groups added to it, creates a scenario where that entire molecule is what? Polar. And if that's the case, where can it go? Right in the water. It's hydrophilic. Right in the water, no problem. All right? We call this molecule based on this guy. What is he? Based on this functional group. What's that name of that functional group? It's called an amino group. Amino group. So we call this entire molecule a what? Amino acid. And he's the brick. You remember you have to put what? If he's a brick, he's called a mono what? Monomer. And if you put a whole bunch of monomers together, you get the brick wall, right? What's this brick wall going to be if you put a whole bunch of amino acid monomers together? Protein. Proteins are very important. Why? Because proteins are chapter 5. Okay? Proteins are the junk that's in the membrane. What's the junk in the membrane? All right, yeah. What is the membrane? It's fat. Yeah. But we have to understand that it's things lodged in there. Things that are lodged in there that are called proteins. A whole bunch of them. So many of them that if the membrane is fat, pretty much making it fat, it's only 50% of the membrane. The other 50% is what? Protein. That's how much junk is in there, which is called protein. It's important you have that protein because what is its particular property again? It's what? Polar. It's polar. And so what that allows, a protein, that monomer, a protein, it allows for something that we need, very, very importantly need for our membrane. If I should draw our what? Phospholipid bilayer, right? Okay. We'll see that what? You have water inside and where? So we have separating this actual what? Area of water. From this area of water, what? Fat, right? Well, oil. Like that. So that means, right? We've created kind of like two different solutions, right? And now we got an interesting scenario. We see our membrane has a particular property now because he will let some things through, right? But he won't let everything through. What things will he let through? Things that are what? Things that are like him. He'll let things through that are like him because they'll have no problem with going with him, going through him. Right? That means, is the membrane pretty much the inside of it, is it what? Polar or non-polar? It's non-polar, those fatty acid tails, right? It's non-polar, that means anything else that's what? Non-polar can what? Go through. Like what? Oxygen. Oxygen can do what? Go right on through. Okay? This is very important to know what goes through, because what we're talking about there is something transporting through a membrane. That's like you needing to eat. You have to have that which is outside your body go where? In your body to stay alive. How is a cell going to stay alive? He has things from that, what we talked about for the past few days. Extracellular fluid, lots of things, oxygen, nutrients, that have to do what? Go through that membrane. That's important, things go through that membrane. That's an important feature. Things going through a membrane. Membrane transport is that important, just like you eating food, drinking whatever you drink. Okay? So, we have to understand what things can get through. Understand? We already know we ain't got no problem with that's good, right? Oxygen, that's like the bottom line thing for the last reaction so that you get a whole bunch of ATP, which is energy. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, he does too. All right? He goes through the membrane. It's very important for him to do what though? Yeah. Look, it's very important to know what goes through the membrane as it relates to that. However, look at our friend here. Our friend here, I talked about him before. What's his property? His property is what? Polar. Okay. So he can go right through the membrane? Back there. Can glucose go right through the membrane? Why? It can't because it's what? It's polar. The membrane is non-polar. Can't make it through. So thank goodness we have what lodged in that membrane? Protein. In fact, it's going from the outside of the membrane through those actual fatty acids all the way into the inside. You see that? Yes, we call this exactly what it's doing. It's traversing the membrane. It's a protein traversing the what membrane? That's a transverse plane, cutting right through it, right? And so we call it exactly what it is. So what? Transmembrane protein. What is it traversing? The membrane. And it happens to be a protein that also happens to be what? What's its property? Polar. If there should be polar things that need to get through this membrane and can't go right through it, like who? Oh, we need him to get in the cell because that's how we get ATP. Very important he gets it. He's going to have some help to do so, right? He's going to have help getting through. And that's those proteins that do that, okay? That's the proteins.